Here we go. Welcome to, well, you know what time it is. It is the NBA Strategy Show. Familiar face here. Dave Loughran filling in for now. Now Josh is just writing random stuff because he loves trying to get me to lose it on stream. That's like what he does. Dave Loughran filling in for EMAC on this wonderful Saturday with Adam Scher. Dude, it's going to be 67 degrees here today. I could not be happier.
I'm really excited about it because someone said that it was supposed to be 25-mile-an-hour winds, cold and raining in Baltimore where I am, and now I found out it's supposed to be in the 60s instead.
Well, if you want a real meteorologist opinion. Oh, man. So our neighborhood, like we're all friends on our block, and my wife, dummy, was like, let's do a sober January. And for some reason, everyone was like, that sounds great. I was like, no, it doesn't sound great at all. I mean, 66-degree temperatures in January can only be God telling you that it's time to drink. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it's perfect day drinking weather.
No question. So 6 games, we're going to break it all down. I did want to ask you first, though, when you look at this slate, 6 games, it's very early in the morning, so I won't ask the same thing I do on the deeper dive. But what is the biggest injury news right now that we need to be concerned about? What type of things could we discuss here at 9:36 a.m. that could be completely irrelevant by 5 that everyone needs to pay close attention to, or by 7 o'clock?
I think the first one that stands out is Anthony Davis in the 8 o'clock game against OKC. Haven't seen any update, after he missed yesterday's game. Haven't seen anything on if he's likely to play today. Talked about it with Dan on the pod last night that my best guess is that it's just going to be a pain because they are not going to have shoot around today since it's a back-to-back. You're probably going to get him listed as questionable and then get the update like halfway through the day that he's still questionable. And so that'll probably be annoying to deal with. I think also looking for news on Derrick Favors, who left last night's game, didn't come back. That would have a big impact as far as opening up value in the New Orleans front court. We know Embiid's out. We know Millsap's out. Still waiting on Will Barton news, who missed the last game for personal reasons. Haven't seen an update on that. Hassan Whiteside is questionable again with an illness. He was questionable with it last game, played really well, but listed as questionable in the final game of the night. So a lot of injury news we know about now, and the trend this year has been on Saturdays. There's plenty more that pops up throughout the day also.
Yeah, and for 6 games, there's a lot going on right now. I agree with you. Especially pay attention to some of these back-to-backs. And we'll do everything we can to break it down right here, and then we'll have other shows throughout the day. If you are playing football today, which I would assume you are, we got a little bit of deeper dive action happening coming up today at 2:30 p.m. for this 4-game slate. 2 games today, 2 games tomorrow. That'll be Ben Rasa, Alex Baker, Osimo himself, and myself, Laffy. And then I believe we've got the Live Before Lock, Eddie and EMAC at 6 p.m. So we got you covered with all of this. Live Before Lock for football, too. 2 shows back-to-back, bring you up till that lock. Glad to have all of you with us, as always, and I'll throw a quick congrats to Dr. 2K Green. He said I won $450 yesterday. Thanks, you guys, for the help. Well, congrats, dude. It's always nice to see people that watch us and hang out with us every day win some money playing NBA DFS. You want to get into this?
Yeah, just a quick update. Will Barton not on the injury report, so he should be back.
Okay, sounds good. By the way, maybe you could check. Fantasy Cruncher right now is not working for me. I don't know.
It's not working for me either.
Okay, so we're not going to go ahead and do lineup study, but we will. If it comes up, maybe we will, but it's probably unnecessary at this point. Let's jump into it. Boston and Nolans got the Celtics at home against the New Orleans Pelicans. There's 2 7 p.m. game slates, this one and then Detroit and Chicago. Celtics are 9.5-point favorites, 224 total. They've got a 116.8 implied total here, 107.3 for the New Orleans Pelicans. You went over some of the injury news. One big piece, obviously, is what's Jrue Holiday's status. He has been out for a couple games. He's questionable to play in this one. Derrick Favors is doubtful. Kenrich Williams, questionable. So those are all pretty significant pieces of news. And for Boston, everyone's good outside of Romeo Langford, which is not big news. I want to start, though, with the Celtics, get this one out of the way first, and then cover all of the injury stuff related to the Pelicans. But, yeah, I mean, dude, the Celtics right now on a 6-gamer have one of the highest implied totals. It is a very, very strong matchup against the Pels, who could be down some pretty significant bodies here in the starting lineup.
Yeah, I think that it's a pretty nice matchup. One thing that stands out about the slate in general is that it's not a lot of appealing DFS teams. It's a lot of pretty good defensive teams, a lot of slower teams. So it makes facing a team like the Pelicans a little bit more appealing than it normally is. The Pelicans over the last month, in the top half of the league in pace, but I think 11th going into yesterday. They've been middle of the pack defensively. If Drew Holiday is out, that is one of their better individual defenders that they're missing. But relative to a lot of the other teams on the slate, it's a pretty good matchup for Boston. They have a 115 team total right now. So I think it's a pretty appealing spot. I think the salaries on Kemba Walker, Gordon Hayward look good in particular. Kemba's salary on DraftKings jumped to 7,600 after being 6,500 last game, but we don't have the minutes concerns we did last game. He played about 33 minutes, doesn't appear to be limited. Hayward played 36 minutes in that one. He is still 6,500. So they both stand out in a pretty nice matchup against the Pels.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the one odd thing about the Boston Celtics this season is none of these guys have particularly high floors. I think you could say that Kemba, when he's healthy and getting full run, is the guy that I could probably rely on the most. But when it comes to Tatum and Brown and Hayward, I've really run with, the cheaper options a lot of times just because they're very similar. I mean, all of them, though. I mean, you got a guy like Hayward. What was it against Philly? He played 36 minutes and had 12 fantasy points, Adam. And I know that's very uncharacteristic of him, and he's actually been pretty solid. But all of these guys tend to have these games where they disappear because there isn't one player on this team that gets force-fed the ball outside of, to some extent, Kemba Walker beyond the arc.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of kind of interchangeable pieces, a lot of guys that are capable scorers, and depending on who's shooting well, how the defenses are playing, it can be any of those guys any given day. So I'm with you. I normally on bigger slates, I just end up not really getting to a whole lot of Boston usually, but also I just prefer the cheaper options. You prefer the cheap options and the lowest owned option because they all have very, very similar ranges of outcomes. So you either want to be saving money or you want to be putting your money on the guy that nobody else wants out of the group four.
No, that's a really good point. It's not just the cheapest. It's if Tatum is 8K and Jaylen Brown is 7,500, but Jaylen Brown's 20% owned and Tatum is 3% owned. Right. Yeah, exactly. So it is. You're right. Salary and ownership. Do we have ownership right now? Let me just see if I can pull this up for Saturday's slate. I'm assuming we do.
We do.
Okay, so where do we have the Boston players coming in at? The main guys here, the 1 through 4.
Looking at DraftKings, Kemba is the highest at about 16%. Behind him, 13% on Jaylen, 11% on Tatum, and Smart, 10% on Hayward.
Okay, so
4% Tice, 2% Cancer.
Okay, so all of this stuff is subject to change throughout the day for sure. But yeah, nobody from Boston right now in the top 10. We do have a couple players from the Pelicans right now getting ownership way up there, Adam. One of them currently the highest. This is our first iteration of ownership projections for the day. But Jackson Hayes getting more ownership than any other player right now, with Derek Favors unlikely to play with that hamstring injury. He left yesterday's game, did not return. Now they're playing the second of a back-to-back, so you would assume that he sits this one out. He's currently doubtful. Jackson Hayes definitely going to get a lot of attention today. Brandon Ingram, I guess because of the matchup, his price has come down from 92 to 8,400. Looking at the way he's performed, man, you want to talk about one of the highest floor players in the league. He just keeps getting it done each and every day. And if Drew Holiday sits, that's even more reason to like him. The only real concern would be a blowout.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Hayes is obviously one of the best values on the slate if Favors sits. It should be Hayes and Okafor splitting minutes at center, with most likely the bulk of the minutes going to Hayes. He's been playing really well lately too, so it's always nice when you get someone like that. He's subject to the whims of Alvin Gentry, as far as we've seen sometimes this year where we think he's going to get more minutes and he doesn't. But it's always nice when someone like that's been playing well and then the opportunity opens up for them to naturally get more minutes. So he looks really good. Ingram's salary looks really good, as you said. It's one of those situations where, assuming Drew doesn't play, Ingram's been a 1.3 fantasy point per minute guy without him on the floor this year. He's playing huge minutes. He was up to 9,200 yesterday. If he were still at like 9,200 against Boston, you kind of have to think about it. But right. By pricing him down to 8,400, you're basically having the site say, hey, this is a bad matchup, so we're going to lower his price. And now the matchup doesn't really matter that much anymore. You're back to just having a really underpriced Brandon Ingram.
For sure. Legalized. I don't know why I swapped Hart out for Redick. Legalized. I love you, bro. But weren't you the same one saying that you wouldn't play Terrence Ross because he's scoring dependent? Just saying.
I hate guys that score.
Look, I get the whole scoring dependent thing. It drives me nuts when guys can't put up peripheral numbers. Yeah, look, JJ Redick and Terrence Ross, all of those guys are very likely to let you down more times than not. But yeah, Ingram's price coming down to where it is now. I mean, $8,400 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, you got him coming in at $9,700. That definitely makes you think about things a little bit more. So when you take this slate, you zoom out on it, you've got Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Andre Drummond, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, all priced above 10K. Then your next highest priced player is Brandon Ingram. The whole Anthony Davis thing is big, but $9,700 on FanDuel definitely makes you think about it a whole lot more than you would at 84 on DraftKings.
Yeah, totally agree. And Davis does have a secondary impact on Ingram because, like, for example, on DraftKings, where Ingram is clearly underpriced at 8,400, 10K LeBron is great in and of itself. But if Davis sits, that's probably an even better, forward option than $8,400 Ingram is.
Yeah. What about the rest of this team? We've got Hayes, assuming Favors is out. Hayes is dirt cheap across the board. He's also slightly below a per minute guy this year, but I have zero problem getting to him on this slate. I see why he's chalk. I get it. I like it. And then Ingram as well on DraftKings. What about the rest of this spot? What about the rest of the New Orleans Pelicans here going up? It's a tough matchup against Boston, but they could be down a lot of players.
They're a really, really favorably priced team on DraftKings today. Lonzo's playing huge minutes, coming off 38 minutes last night. Even if you get 34 to 36, he's only 6,700. It's obviously not a good matchup. But as I mentioned before, we're not going to really have any games on this slate. You don't have the Wizards, you don't have the Hawks, you don't have a lot of these teams that are faster paced and bad defensive teams. So you're not going to get a lot of matchups that you're really in love with. So the price on Lonzo I think looks good. 4,800 for Hart. It's not anything I'm excited about, but it's a reasonable value. He should play 32, 33 minutes, played 36 and a half yesterday. But I think that all those guys look like pretty decent options.
All right. What would you say your top plays are from both sides of this game? Like I'd mentioned earlier, it is coming in with one of the higher totals, 224 and over under is it's pretty nice. Like this could be, if the Pelicans do keep it competitive, this could be one of the best, easily one of maybe the best game on the slate.
Yeah, I think that Ingram and Favors are the two priorities for me. Sorry, Ingram and Hayes are the two priorities for me, assuming Favors doesn't play. And then looking at guys like Kemba, like Gordon Hayward, like Lonzo Ball, kind of as secondary options. One other piece to mention from the Pels is that Nicole Alexander-Walker is only 3,100 on DraftKings. He's played 15, 20, and 24 minutes now. In the three games that Drew has missed, potentially impacted a little bit by garbage run, but I don't think it's been that much because he didn't get it 2 games ago when he played 20, and then he closed against the Knicks last night, but that was a game where Hayes closed, Ingram closed, Hart closed, and Lonzo closed. Alexander Walker was just in over Redick. So I think at 3,100 for someone that can score like he can, if you can get 18 to 20 minutes, it's pretty appealing.
I think so too. On Yahoo, Hayes is $12, really favorable. Ingram's $40, which is still a lot cheaper than guys like Doncic and Giannis and LeBron. So all of those guys over on Yahoo make sense. Kemba Walker, 31. Pricing on Yahoo is really not bad today. And if you haven't signed up there, use the sign-up code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, and be sure to use the link at awesemo.com. It's very simple. All you do is go to awesemo.com, click on the NBA tab, and you'll see the Cash Building Blocks article. It's free. It's written by EMAC. I don't know who's writing it today, but it'll be there. You can use yesterday's. No big deal. Maybe we'll our social media guys will drop a link in the chat as well to make it easier. But really, all you have to do is click on that, and you'll read the article. Once you get to the bottom, the Yahoo link is right there. You get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points when you sign up and deposit. They're as good as cash to be used on the site to play and win real money. It's the only site where you can become a baller, so there's no real reason you wouldn't want to do that. And you know what? The competition just isn't as stiff. You might not be bringing in $100,000 to first place, but there's a much more legitimate and feasible shot of winning good money on Yahoo with less competition. There's some no veteran contests, some management free contests where everything paid out or in by the player gets paid back out to the player. So just use the sign up code AWESEMO. Click on the link that we provide in those free articles on the NFL or NBA tab, and sign up. Get up to $30 in YSRPs when you do. That's Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, sponsor of the Deeper Dive and the NBA Strategy Show. All right, let's go ahead and get to Detroit and Chicago. So Lauri Markkanen, I voiced this concern on the Early Bird and the Strategy Show that I really liked Markkanen, but I was worried that against that Indy team, you might see Daniel Gafford start. Now, I assumed Sabonis was going to play, right? And he didn't, which is why I thought you would see Markkanen at the 4. Well, we got Markkanen at the 4, but Sabonis didn't even end up playing. Markkanen had a pretty dismal game, 23 fantasy points in 34 minutes. He shot only 9 times, 4 for 9, 11 points, 5 rebounds, an ugly performance through and through. Meanwhile, you've got Daniel Gafford, who did get the start, comes in into today's game after 27 minutes yesterday. He was worse than Markkanen, just god-awful at 27 minutes. Essentially, I think he averaged less than half a fantasy point per minute. But the Bulls have the second lowest implied total on this slate. It's a 217 over-under. They're 4-point dogs here against the Pistons. I guess we'll start with Chicago. We know that Wendell Carter Jr. is out for some time.
Yeah, so I think I'm assuming Gafford starts again here against Drummond. His salary at least came down. He's 4,400 on DraftKings now. He was, I don't remember, like 48 or 49 yesterday, I think. For the season, he's a 0.88 fantasy point per minute guy. With Zach Lavine on the floor, he's 0.77. That's something that I think is important, because a lot of times when guys go from the bench to the starting lineup, we have a tendency to be like, oh, they're really productive, when a lot of their production's been garbage time or at least against the second unit. So I think he's okay to take a shot on, but I would, assuming if Davis doesn't play, JaVale McGee's even less expensive than Gafford is. I think that Markkanen is in a pretty good bounce back spot. It's not a good Detroit defense. He's still got some time at the 5, and he did play 34 minutes, which is appealing. But my favorite play from Chicago has to be Zach Lavine, who's just playing massive minutes right now. He played 37.8 minutes yesterday. He's been playing 37, 38 minutes in competitive games, leads the team in usage. Detroit is not a good team defensively whatsoever. So Lavine really stands out as a top option for me.
He does. And not only is Zach Lavine leading this team in usage, but it's been even more significant lately. I mean, you're just seeing his usage trend upwards in a big way. You take a look over the last 3 weeks, and he's been putting up just monster numbers in the usage department, getting up 20-plus shots per game. Take a look at his numbers since the 18th of January over his last 10. His usage is sitting at 33%, 1.26 fantasy points per minute. Not bad at all. His assist rate isn't what it was last year when we had him playing a lot of point guard, but he's at least making up for that with a ton of volume, getting to the line a decent amount too. I'm with you here. I think this price point on Zach Lavine is really friendly. clear-cut top option on Chicago. And if you take a look at his usage right now, you've got Zach Lavine coming in on DraftKings at 14% on a 6-gamer. Really not that bad, 8,300. And then 8,600 on FanDuel. You've got him at 16%. And then over on Yahoo, Zach Lavine at $34. He's the highest there, almost 25%. So I wouldn't say it's site dependent, but I would say he's priced reasonably everywhere. Anyone else for Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, I think Satoransky stands out because of his salary on DraftKings at 5,500. The minutes are kind of volatile, but he played 37 last night. I think normally you're getting 33 or 34 from him. It's just a really cheap price point against Detroit. And then the same can be said for Kobe White, who he's someone that I prefer to roster when he's not popular. We have him projected for about 13% ownership right now. He's pretty cheap. He's played 32 and 28 minutes in his last 2 games. Those minutes can disappear just as quickly as they got there, but he does shoot when he's out there, which makes him appealing at that salary if his ownership were to come down some.
Yeah. And Popcorn Machine hasn't updated for yesterday yet. Last I looked.
Yeah, you have to do the URL.
Oh, is it available though? They actually
it's there. It's just not listed.
Okay, cool. Let's actually go to the home team here. Talk about Detroit. A little bit more to get into. The Andre Drummond trade rumors are starting to swirl. You hearing this?
I hadn't heard anything recently. I'd heard the ones to the Hawks like 4 or 5 days ago.
Oh man, if you had to give you one guess, I don't expect you to guess it, but if you had to take a guess, what is the other team that you think might be interested in Andre Drummond right now?
Is it a contender or not?
No.
Kings?
The Knicks.
Oh God.
Isn't Oh God.
So we can go Drummond at the 5, Randall at the 4, Portis at the 3,
Mitchell
Morris
at the
2. Yeah. I forgot that's what I forgot. I forgot about Robinson. Yeah, so Randall at the 3, Robinson at the 4, Drummond at the 5, Morris at the 2, Barrett at point. There we go.
Dude, it's gonna be a disaster. I honestly don't understand that. And you know, one of the reasons I don't is because like Andre Drummond did not come into the league as a scorer at all, right? Like phenomenal rebounder, also got in a ton of foul trouble. I'm not trying to equate his style of play to Mitchell Robinson, but what I am saying is he definitely took some time to develop into the type of player that he is today. There's no question about that, right? Mitchell Robinson, in my opinion, can be developed into a good, you have the issues with foul trouble, but Andre Drummond was in constant foul trouble over his first few years. That was something, how often we talked about it all the time. It was always concerning that he get in foul trouble. He's definitely came in the league more polished offensively than Robinson, but it seems strange to me that you wouldn't want to give Robinson a chance to become that starting center that could play 30 plus minutes per game.
Could that be why they're interested in Drummond? They did it last year when they picked up.
To develop him?
Yeah, I mean, they picked up DeAndre Jordan for half the year because they wanted him to teach Robinson how to play defense better. That's
actually really interesting because Robinson and Drummond do have a lot of similar skill sets. Huh.
Right. I mean, so if they got Drummond, I assume it would be not with the intention of giving him a max deal, but of just being like, hey, you're here for half a year and then you're a free agent.
For sure. I mean, it's a strange rental because you're not going anywhere. You're not renting him to win.
The only way it makes sense is if they're renting him to make Mitchell Robinson better.
Right. That's a great point. Why else would you even inquire about him to begin with? Yeah, it's interesting. So we'll see. But just keep that in mind. Look, we got a long way to go before the trade deadline, so it's not something I'm terribly concerned about. But teams are inquiring about Andre Drummond. Going up against Chicago, I don't know if it's going to – you would think it's got to be Gafford starting again. I'd be shocked if it wasn't against Drummond at the 5. Not worried about that matchup at all. He played 49 of 53 available minutes last game. He played the entire second, the entire third, the entire fourth, and all of overtime. I don't know what Dwayne Casey's trying to do, take a page out of Scott Brooks' playbook, but – as crazy as it is in just grinding Drummond down, it is so good for his fantasy prospects.
Yeah, it really is. And he should just absolutely eat against this Chicago front court minus Wendell Carter Jr. Just another great spot for him, huge minutes. The rates go up across the board without Blake Griffin on the floor. There's nothing negative to say about Drummond. I think the price tag is still very, very affordable. It's another spot where he should go for 20 and 20.
You would think so. Is the price doable for you? Is the big question.
Yeah, I mean, where it gets tricky is like 10-1 isn't 10-1's not too expensive for Drummond.
No.
I don't think so at all. Where it gets tricky is like he's more expensive than LeBron.
I know. If Anthony Davis is out, that's like no. What do you? It's clear where you're going there.
The other thing though is that pricing today is just so soft. Like yesterday, pricing on DraftKings was tight until we got the Beal out and the Pacers out news. But like at this point yesterday, you were looking like, man, where is there going to be any value? That's not the case today. So it probably won't be that tough to get like LeBron plus Drummond and still make some pretty good lineups.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's also, we haven't gotten to guys like Giannis and Doncic and a couple of others yet. We will, and we'll kind of try and incorporate all of that into the analysis with LeBron and with Drummond, because it's the only real way it's going to make sense. But I'm with you. Drummond just very appealing. Now, I want to make sure we cover all sites here. Drummond, do you know Drummond is $200 cheaper than Giannis and $300 cheaper than Luka on FanDuel? That's absurd.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's just nuts. Drummond, I'd say honestly, Drummond's best price point is on DraftKings.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I don't think it should be difficult. It's not going to be difficult to get to him at all.
Okay, so what are we doing with the rest of Detroit? Bruce Brown coming off, his best game in a long time. He actually decided that he'd be present on offense. The 6 stocks didn't hurt either. I wouldn't expect that to be commonplace. But, he had monster game here in overtime. He ended up playing 38 minutes. Derrick Rose, who I tweeted, good news, Derrick Rose seems to have won the I want more minutes battle against Dwayne Casey. You said bad news. He's still playing like he has one knee. He finished with 40 fantasy points. Now,
he got there.
That was before overtime, though. I'll give you that. Like you said, that
he was my second highest owned player, so I was not happy when he was sitting in the fourth quarter with like 20 points.
For sure. But I mean, look, dude took 24 shots. And
yeah, he's got like a 33% usage rate without Blake or Kennard on the floor.
It's crazy. And I don't like to use, I don't like using field goal attempts, but because usage factors a bunch of other stuff in. But at the same time, you're seeing the minutes come up, and it's not like the minutes are coming up, and as a result, he's been far less efficient, and more minutes, but the same amount of the same amount of shots. No, like when Derrick Rose is out there, he's going to be gunning no matter what, and I like that. But now you've got a price point that he's $6,500 last game. He's 73 now. He's 68 on FanDuel, which I think is pretty reasonable. On Yahoo, he's $26. But I think I'm going to start projecting him at 30 minutes. And you called it. He started the second half again now. So that's 3 straight games where he started the second half. 29, 30 minutes projecting him at seems to make sense.
Yeah, it scares me because I just feel like there's going to be some point where Dwayne Casey is like, oh, we're playing him too much, and then stops. And
the moment a game isn't competitive, he is out.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I think that at least we know he can get 30, 31 minutes. And also, like, obviously they're not going to play him 36 minutes in regulation, you wouldn't think.
No way.
But it was at least good to see that they ran him out there for overtime. Like,
I
was actually kind of concerned they would. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that even though the price tag has come up, he's still a pretty solid option. In the 6 games since Griffin's most recent injury, obviously Kennard didn't play in any of these games either. Rose has a 35% usage rate. He's averaged 1.12 DraftKings points per minute, 30% assist percentage, which is down a bit from his season long numbers, but that could have something to do with playing more alongside Drummond, who also gets assists. Bruce Brown has a 24.5% assist percentage. That's probably the biggest factor, but still 35% usage for a guy at this price point is pretty appealing.
Yeah, I agree. And Bruce Brown's coming off that very solid game. I will say that Bruce Brown is, if Rose continues to get these minutes, it normally would affect Bruce Brown in a negative way, at least. With
Yeah, it
Brown,
makes him the clear third option offensively.
exactly, and as a facilitator, because
Right.
Derrick Rose has a 37% assist rate with Brown on the floor. Bruce Brown has a 15% assist rate on the floor with Rose, 14% usage rate to Rose 31, and 0.87 fantasy points per minute to Rose 1.25. So definitely worth considering that much.
The numbers are a little bit closer over the stretch since Griffin's injury.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I mean, who knows if it stays that way going forward? But six full games now without Drummond and Kennard, 17.5% usage for Brown, 24.5%.
Right, without Griffin and Kennard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Bruce Brown's probable to play. So outside of Drummond, let's just wrap it up. What are you doing with the rest of the Pistons here against the Bulls?
Yeah, so Drummond's the obvious priority. Rose, I would say, is second. Brown and Sekou are both there. They're not priorities for me. Like, there's enough underpriced guys today that I'll prefer, but they're also, I wouldn't say they're overpriced. So they're just kind of, they'll probably be really low owned. They can be used as differentiation plays, but they won't be a big part of my night. Svi is not a big part of my plans.
Okay. Let's move it on here. OKC LA Lakers. So, I mean, the biggest question here is Anthony Davis. I said yesterday I thought this was like a true, legitimate, questionable scenario for Davis. Not he's going to play, but we're going to label him as questionable. It seemed like that fall he took was significant enough to possibly hold him out. Excuse me. I think he is. I don't have any idea whether he's going to play. Like, is this he sat out on the first end of a back-to-back. I feel like he's another legitimately, like, a real questionable scenario, not just, this was precautionary. So that's the take I have on it. Could be wrong, but wasn't yesterday. And I'm going to continue to assume that Anthony Davis has a shot of not playing today too.
Right. I agree with you where it could be that they just knew they weren't going to play in both games. The reports after it happened kind of seemed to indicate that he would miss a couple games.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, so I'm leaning towards him not being out there. But yeah, I think that it's probably gonna. I don't expect him to be ruled out particularly early today.
Right.
Like, I think it's going to be an annoying thing to keep an eye on.
Agreed. So we'll get to that. Let's start with the home team in the OKC Thunder, coming off a pretty dominant win, right, over against the Houston Rockets. Now, Rockets playing their second of a back-to-back on the road. Take that for what it's worth. It doesn't matter. It's in the rear view. Now we're talking OKC and the Lakers. And you've got the Thunder here at home as 1-point dogs. So I don't know about you. I think that might, or 1.5 points now. That looks like a no AD line, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, maybe not, but 1.5 points. Thunder are not that good of a basketball team. You would think it'd be what? Like, if Davis was playing, what would you set this line at? I'd probably go like 4.5.
Yeah, that would. I mean, it is in OKC, and it is a back-to-back for the Lakers, but
that's true. Back-to-back for the Lakers makes sense. 1 point still seems a little bit small. Yeah. I don't know. 215 total, 108 implied for the Lakers, 107 for the Thunder. Let's start with OKC. Danilo Gallinari coming off a monster game. He was ruled out originally and then questionable, and then he played 28 minutes and erupted for 23 and 11. And then you've got your usual cast of characters with Chris Paul, Gilgeous-Alexander, Dennis Schroeder, Steven Adams with Nerlens Noel, also sidelined. He's already been ruled out. Adams has been seeing really the most minutes in competitive games that he's seen all year. Anything you really like for the Thunder?
I think that Chris Paul's salary still really stands out at $6,800 on DraftKings. He started off the season really slowly, but he's really turned things around. He's playing really well. It's obviously not a great matchup against the Lakers, but I think that price tag's a little cheap. Schroeder at $5,600 is a pretty cheap price tag as well. He's hurt a little bit by Gallinari being back, but you still should get, assuming a competitive game, around 30 minutes from Schroeder. Steven Adams is really interesting because when Noel first went down, you got like a 35-minute game from Adams, and everyone kind of just started assuming he's going to play 34, 35 minutes. He got 35 minutes in the next game, but that was because he played 5 minutes in overtime. And then last game, in the win against Houston, he played 25 minutes, didn't get his fourth quarter run, but was pretty much on pace to play around the 30 minutes that you've been getting from him. So, or for most of the season. So I think that he's an okay option because if you give him 30 minutes, he's 6,400 on DraftKings. He projects reasonably well, but I do think that there's a chance that he comes in overowned just because I think that sites in general are projecting him pretty high. Right now, though, we only have him at 8%. If that's the case, I think he's a good play. If it goes up to where he has been on recent slates where he's been, 21, 30, 35%, then I would back away pretty quickly.
For sure. What did you say about the 35 minutes against Philly?
I'm not sure if it was Philly. One of the games, I think it was the Brooklyn game, was overtime.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say with Philly, it was also that he was literally on the floor for every second that Embiid was on the floor. Like Billy Donovan clearly wanted him out there for every second that Embiid was out there. And I think he may have gotten a couple extra minutes because Embiid's rotation was screwed up with that gruesome finger injury. And then he returned and Adams came right back into the game. So I'm definitely not giving him 35 minutes at all. But
yeah.
Projecting him,
that's a good point too.
Yeah, projecting him at like 30 or 31 definitely makes some sense. What about on the Lakers side? This is one of those spots, like at the top of the show, the question was, what could change to where certain things just have no relevance early in the day? This is the biggest one, right? I mean, if Davis is out, everything changes. I know it's a second of a back-to-back, but LeBron James at 10K on DraftKings is absurd on a site like DraftKings that has preemptively priced guys like Daniel Gafford up above 5,000, because Wendell Carter Jr. was out. But I guess we just forgot about LeBron.
It's like DraftKings decided that because it's the weekend, everyone needs to be able to play whoever they want to play. I mean, they've been doing it with shorter slates this year, and then now I guess they're doing it with weekend slates too. But yeah, 10K for LeBron with or without Davis is a terrible price. In that it's just too easy. If Davis is out, you're talking about like 1.55, 1.56 points per minute, probably playing 36 minutes in a competitive game at $10,000. There's no reason not to like that.
Okay. What about the rest of the Lakers? A team that's generally wildly underwhelming or unappealing from a fantasy standpoint when Davis and LeBron are both on the floor. But I think we can look at yesterday's game to dictate what we're getting here if Davis happens to sit. So let's just go ahead and assume Davis sits so we can break this team down because Kyle Kuzma played 34 minutes yesterday.
Yeah, one thing to be careful of if you are looking at yesterday's game as kind of a blueprint for what's going to happen without Davis is that McGee and Howard were both in huge foul trouble in that game. Right. So in the first two games this year that Davis missed, you basically got 48 minutes from McGee and Howard. In the first game, it was 28 minutes for McGee. In the second game, 22 for McGee. Yesterday, you got 10 minutes for Howard and 18 minutes for McGee. But again, they were both in foul trouble. The game got kind of out of hand. You got some, LeBron / Dudley, I guess, minutes at the 5. I would assume that here you get closer to 48 minutes, barring foul trouble. So I think that going right back to JaVale McGee at 4,100 makes sense. Dwight's at 5,100 on DraftKings, which makes it a little bit tougher to get to, but it does make him, kind of a natural pivot to McGee since he negatively correlates, 100%. So I think McGee is one of the top values. He's up there with Jackson Hayes for me, assuming Davis doesn't play.
Okay. I think I would agree with you. The foul trouble is pretty significant there. I do want to ask before we move on, if Davis is out, where would you rank LeBron overall? Just in the context of the entire slate, where do you rank LeBron James on, let's go across DraftKings, FanDuel, and Yahoo, since a lot of these prices are very different today.
Number one for me on DraftKings, on FanDuel. Where is he? On FanDuel, number 3. I would have him behind Luka and I think Drummond. Okay. Definitely Luka. So either 2 or 3 on FanDuel. On Yahoo.
On Yahoo, he's 54. Giannis is 56. Doncic is 58. Drummond's 48.
Yeah. It's tough on Yahoo because there's so many like $10 guys that
I
are
know.
obviously better values. I would say that he's behind Drummond, who's $6 less, ahead of the other expensive guys.
Okay. I think that's where I would put him too. DraftKings clearly is where he is the best price compared to everyone else. I don't even think it's close. Dallas and Philadelphia. Before we do that, I just want to let you guys know that today's the last day to get 20 days of Awesemo Plus Platinum All Access membership for $20. 20 days for $20. It's $1 a day. It's the best promo we've done yet. All you got to do is use the promo code 2020 2020. It gets you $20 or 20 days for $20. That includes everything we have to offer. The ownership projections you hear us reference, the top stack tools, the boomer bust tools, the player projections, all of which have been developed and used every day by Awesemo himself. The lineup builder. There is the Fantasy Cruncher add-on that you can get at checkout. And so much more. All of our premium articles that these guys spend a ton of time on, and our premium Slack chat for all our premium subs to talk and bullshit every day for DFS related stuff. All of that, $20 for 20 days, $1 a day. Just use the sign up code 2020. It's really the best promo we've done yet. Hopefully we see you guys over there, and do be sure to pop into Slack chat when you do and introduce yourself. And if you want to just go all out, if you use the sign up code New Year, you get 20% off your entire year of Awesemo Plus Platinum membership. That's right. The $20, it's $200 value off of the entire year. So if you didn't want to do 20 days and you just wanted to jump into it and go full out all year, it's New Year will get you 20%, $200 off. Let's keep it moving here. We've got Dallas and Philadelphia. Last time these two teams played, Dallas Mavericks smoked the Sixers in Philly, handing them their second home loss of the season. Luka Doncic was not active in that game. He should be barring any unforeseen circumstances. Luka will be active today. And Joel Embiid won't be reevaluated for another week or two, which means the Sixers are 2-point dogs here in Dallas, 224 total. Josh, here we go, baby. You know what that means? I'm 1-0 right now. It very much looks like this could go 2-0 here, and you're on your way to rocking nothing but a porn stash for a week straight at the end of the season. Boy, I can't wait to see you christen the MLB Deep Dive Strategy Show with that nasty, straggly porn stash. It's going to be fantastic. What are you thinking here, man?
Yeah, I think starting on the Dallas side, that Luka obviously looks like a good option. It's tougher to get to him on DraftKings just because you have clearly priced down LeBron, clearly priced down Drummond, just a lot of guys across the board. Even Giannis is $900 less than Luka. I mentioned it though when we were talking about LeBron. Then on FanDuel you have Luka at 11.3, you have LeBron at 10.9. Luka for the season averages more points per minute than LeBron averages without Davis on the floor. I think that's something to keep in mind because obviously LeBron's a great option, especially if Davis is out. But there's always a tendency for people to just not really look at the numbers, just kind of be like, oh, Davis is out, like he has to be the best. Like Luka still averages more points per minute than LeBron does. So that's worth noting. And then Philadelphia is not as good defensively without Embiid on the floor either. So I think Luka, where he's not, $2,000 more than every other player on the slate, is a really good option.
Okay. What about outside of Luka, talking about a Dallas team that really hasn't provided us a ton of value recently? Porzingis, however, does remain out. You and I have extensively talked about how much better Luka get. I don't know how it's possible, but he gets even better with Porzingis off the floor. The rest of this team, though, with Porzingis out, I don't know. I mean, you get, 25 or so minutes from Maxi Kleber, you would think. By the way, they're playing their second of a back-to-back as well, coming off that home loss. They were favored in that game. They got smoked. And then Dwight Powell has been playing pretty significant minutes lately. And then we saw yesterday DeLon Wright coming in with decent ownership. Unsurprisingly, failed to produce, but that should have been that should have been expected.
Yeah, Alex and I mentioned that on the deeper dive that DeLon Wright's numbers take a huge hit when he plays with Luka, as you would expect, because the ball's not in his hands. He's not shooting. He's not picking up assists. So a huge drop for him. And kind of the flip side to that is like if you're going to take a shot, I think, on one of these interchangeable Dallas guards, I think Seth Curry at 4K is the guy that I would want to take a chance on. Not that I'm saying he's a priority or anything, but he's at least playing off the bench. He's getting more minutes without Luka on the floor. He's cheap. He'll be low owned. That's the guy that if I'm going to one of these secondary pieces, like DeLon Wright or Finney Smith or whatever, I think Curry is the one I would take a shot on. Tim Hardaway Jr. played about 30 minutes yesterday. Didn't played 32 minutes and then missed the last like 4 minutes of the game. I think that's worth noting as his minutes have been ramping up. So Luka's my number one guy from Dallas, obviously. Then I would go to Hardaway, and then if I had to, I would go to Curry.
Okay. Luka, Hardaway, Curry. And yeah, you're right. Like anybody that's going to, I think I mentioned, we talked about this a while ago, maybe a week or so, that these chalky Dallas value guards that are playing and you see like, oh, they average a fantasy point per minute. That's great. And most of their minutes have come with Luka off the floor. It's one of the most misleading stats that you could look at. Like you need to see what happens when one of the highest usage, one of the highest assist rate, one of the best rebounding guards is on the floor with you. He's going to become a black hole and just essentially soak up everything. It's a huge deal.
No matter what stat it is that you're contributing to the second unit, it's going to take a big hit if you're playing alongside Luka because he does all of it.
Literally, yeah. Unless it's like, oh, you're a good shot blocker,
Right.
But everything else will significantly decrease.
I mean, look at Dwight Powell. Like even he's taken, I don't even want to say a step back because I don't want to make it sound like he's taking a step back basketball wise because I have no idea if he has or not. But like from a fantasy standpoint, he's even been pretty useless this year.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. When you look at how Dwight Powell has performed in other seasons, whenever we got Dwight Powell at like 30 minutes and he was value, you usually got pretty decent numbers out of him. Last year he averaged 0.99 fantasy points per minute. Basically it was like 0.994 or something fantasy points per minute. He was right around 1. This year, he's averaging 0.78 fantasy points per minute.
I got distracted because I pulled up Twitter and Alex is tweeting about koalas with chlamydia.
Wait, say this again?
I said I got distracted while you were talking because I pulled up Twitter and Alex is tweeting about koalas with chlamydia.
Hey, I thought we can't tweet about non-DFS stuff.
You got to make it good if you do.
I mean, listen, I'm all about those type of tweets, Alex. So keep it up, man. That's what makes Twitter fun. By the way, if you're not on Twitter, it is great for DFS. It's also great for random stuff in the DFS community. Be sure to follow us at ShipMyMoneyDFS, myself at Laffy_D, LOUGHY_D. Our handles are right above our heads. We'll see you over there. And both of us, by the way, very happy to interact with people. Adam might not be as forgiving as others, but it makes for great Twitter. So definitely come over, check it out, and give us a follow. Philadelphia side of the ball, no Joel Embiid. We saw last game, Al Horford got off to a pretty ugly start, and I'm thinking, all right, here we go again. This is he is who we thought he was, and then he turned things around because Joel Embiid is somebody that being off the floor is a massive jump in opportunity. Josh Richardson finally had a decent game, so on a per minute basis, Tobias Harris 1.21 with Embiid off the floor. Josh Richardson only 0.89, but at least he sees a 24.5% usage rate. Al Horford's usage goes from 10% with Embiid on the floor to 22% with him off. His per minute production jumps to 1.13. I think, Al Horford sees the most significant boost because number one, he's playing at the 5. Number 2, he's not just standing around doing literally nothing. Number 3, he's a better rebounder and even sees more opportunities to facilitate because the ball isn't in Joel Embiid's hand. But this whole team benefits. They're 2-point dogs. How are we approaching the Sixers now that we've seen some of the price tags come up? Others have come down.
Yeah, like Ben Simmons' salary came down. You and I had talked about it in that first game. He was $9K, and it was kind of like, Well, he plays big minutes, but he doesn't get a huge bump in terms of production without Embiid
Right.
because he can't shoot anyway. But now his salary is coming down. We got 38 minutes like we expected. Now you're getting, $8,500 guy with guard and forward eligibility on DraftKings that plays 38 minutes. I still would give an edge to Brandon Ingram, but looking at ownership, we had Ingram at what, 17%.
Simmons is
Simmons,
at 16.
yeah, 16. So pretty close. Like I'd give the edge to Ingram if the ownership's going to be the same, but it's certainly a spot where you can look to pivot if there ends up being an ownership gap. Still an affordable salary on Harris and Horford. Horford's salary came up, but it was so cheap to begin with that it doesn't really matter that it came up some. They both look like two top options for me. And then Richardson coming off of the monster game, played about 34 minutes like we expected. Usage rate without Embiid this year does climb to about 23.5%, 24%. So more offensive opportunities for him. I would say that out of the main four starters at their current prices, Richardson is the least appealing to me.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, Richardson had like 11 of the Sixers' first 15 points last game. Cooled off a little bit, but he then had 14 points in the fourth quarter. He had no points in the second and third quarter. All 25 came in the first and fourth. But yeah, when you look at this rotation, I'd said this a few weeks ago. Norvel Pell has pretty much passed Kyle O'Quinn in the rotation, right? He's pretty much taken those minutes from him. Good shot blocker. Brett Brown seems to like what he sees in him and, giving him 10 to 15 minutes in a spot like this. Matisse Thybulle's back in the lineup. That makes a difference. And Trey Burke is getting minutes, but that doesn't mean anything because he's just getting backup minutes instead of Raul Neto. But yeah, Pell getting the minutes over O'Quinn, and Matisse Thybulle can shift things up a little bit at the wing position. So Mike Scott did still play 26 minutes. Al Horford played 32. Simmons played 39, like you said. Richardson 34. And Tobias Harris got 35. I think the one thing that we know here, assuming the game stays close, is that Simmons is going to play a ton of minutes. Harris and Richardson are going to get a ton of minutes. And then Horford's going to get his run here. The real thing is because Horford and Harris can shift from the 3 and 4 to the 4 and 5, you're not going to get a ton of value opening up. But I have to ask you about Mike Scott. Embarrassingly bad half the time. Other times he gets hot and he can knock shots down. He played 26 minutes. If he starts knocking him down from 3-point range and we don't have a lot of value today, I could see him being fine, but that's about it. He's fine.
Yeah, it's not like he's contributing a lot in the way of rebounds. He's contributing virtually nothing in the way of assists. It's really just about, is he knocking down the threes that he takes. So I think there was like the one game that started, which would absolutely nuts. And if you didn't have him, you just weren't going to win anything. But more often than not, that's not going to be the case. I don't think he's particularly appealing, and I don't think we're going to have trouble finding value today.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think we will either, but unless injuries don't break in the direction we're looking for, 4K isn't crazy. But like I said, he's not very appealing. No one really is from a value standpoint on this team. Does have a 224 total, though, one of the higher ones on the slate. Anything else from Philly?
Nope.
All right. We got 2 to go. Denver here. Going up against the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're 12.5-point favorites at home. 215.5 total. 114.3 implied for the Nuggets. 101.8 for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Nikola Jokic has been, really all over the map this season. But the big question is, how do we see his ownership come in today with Millsap already ruled out? We know that to be a positive. He is already sidelined for this game. And then Will Barton, however, is off the injury report, as you mentioned at the top of the show, so he should be active, opposed to last game where both Millsap and Barton were inactive.
Yeah, so I think that Millsap being out is nice for Jokic because it does give him a little bit more usage when you're replacing Millsap with Jeremy Grant in the starting lineup, assuming that's who they go with. But the problem for me is that Jokic, it's not that he's too expensive, it's that everyone else is too cheap. So like it's hard for me to get to Jokic and 32, 33 minutes from him compared to 36, 37 minutes from Andre Drummond at basically the same price point. Especially like right now we have Yeah, you have Drummond at 30% ownership on DraftKings, but Jokic is at 17, 18%. It's not like you're getting a huge discount from Drummond to Jokic. So right now, I would just rather be piling ownership to Andre Drummond where they're comparably priced.
Okay. Yeah, I think I would agree with that. By the way, yeah, looking at chat, definitely neither of us said to play Norvel Pell. What I said was that Pell is in the rotation over Kyle O'Quinn. Very different. Outside of Jokic, do you have any interest in Denver against the Cavs?
Not really. The price, so like Will Barton's expensive. Jamal Murray is, I think, a decent option. He's the same price point as Chris Paul, which I would just rather take the lower owned one in tournaments. I think you get similar minutes. I think the matchup is better for Murray. He obviously can go out there and score a ton of points. So I think Murray is my favorite guy from Denver. You get some value with like Jeremy Grant, Gary Harris, but the problem is that neither of them are very good fantasy producers. So you're not really confident that you're going to get a whole lot out of them. But Grant 4,900 on DraftKings, Gary Harris 4,300. The minutes should at least be there.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you on that. Cleveland side, this might be the most unappealing team on the entire slate. They have the lowest implied total by a wide margin, 5 points. It's 101.8 here in Denver, 12.5-point dogs. Hard to get very excited about this team, but we've got to touch on them, if only for a minute even. We know that Kevin Porter Jr. is out. Dante Exum is out. Larry Nance remains out. And we've seen that be the case for a couple of days now. So we have a pretty good idea of what this rotation will look like. Alfonso McKinney was brought back after he was waived. He came into that game and ended up playing 14 minutes against the Pistons. Brandon Knight played 24 minutes in back-to-back games. Tristan Thompson coming off a monster performance, 35 points against the Pistons. And Kevin Love played 38 minutes in that overtime game, 33 in regulation. Any interest here at all?
Not much, because it is a tough matchup against Denver. I'm not really that interested in Thompson's bounce back game here, because for one, the matchup isn't good, but more importantly, we saw him play 40 minutes in regulation against Detroit. That's a game where Andre Drummond played 44 minutes in regulation. Both Drummond and Thompson played every single minute of the second half. Jokic doesn't play that many minutes. Like, he's 32, 33, maybe 34 minutes. Even if you assume Thompson matches up with every Jokic minute, it's still not giving him enough minutes for me to be really interested in him at his price point against Denver. So the only, like, Colin Sexton and Garland look okay at their prices because of how many minutes they play. Same goes for Chetty, but none of them stand out. And then Kevin Love is cheap, but still not a good matchup. And there's just so many underpriced guys today that looking to the Cavs in Denver isn't something I'll be doing a whole lot of.
Yeah, I mean, the matchup against the Nuggets isn't as tough as it was before in terms of their defense. I don't really know exactly what it is, but defensively they have taken a pretty significant step back this year. But they're also playing at the second slowest pace on the season. Cavs are playing at the fifth slowest pace. It's really a pretty unappealing game. I don't know about you. I'd say overall this is the worst game on the slate.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was going to say it's not even like you said, Denver has been bad defensively, especially recently, but it's really the pace for me. Like, over the last month, Denver is 29th in pace, Cleveland's 21st. And going into Denver is always tough. So it's just, even though they have struggled defensively, it's just not a spot that I really want to be investing a lot of money into.
For sure. Hey, by the way, if you want to get a free Awesemo Plus PGA pass, all access, well, everything for PGA, like a platinum PGA pass, I guess we could call it, go to Awesemo_com on Twitter, and you'll see the giveaway that we're doing. All you got to do is guess the third round winner. Who will be the third round leader of the Sony Open, sorry. So used to Sony Michelle. Win a free Awesemo Plus, golf monthly pass. All you got to do, guess who will be the third round leader, the Sony Open. Retweet, like, and reply, and then follow Awesemo_com and Awesemo Golf. And if you wanted to just get a Awesemo weekly pass for $1, use the promo code PGA 2020. Yeah, head over there. If you correctly predict the third round leader of the Sony Open, you will be one of the random winners we select to get the Awesemo Plus monthly golf pass. So head over there and check that out. Portland, Milwaukee. close it out here, man. On this wonderful and sunny Saturday morning. I'm going to go outside and, well, do nothing, but I'm going to go outside. Portland.
Definitely not drink.
All right. Well, I got another show to do. I at least have some level of professionalism that I'll wait until after the show. Portland, 228.5 total, second highest on the day, but the highest on the slate because the Rockets and Minnesota Timberwolves are not on this slate. They're at 230 though. 228.5 is the highest on the slate. Bucks 6-point road favorites, 117 implied, 111 for Portland. Man, good thing I was not targeting Giannis yesterday. A lot of times when Giannis is coming in very low owned, I have no problem getting to him. But yesterday it just didn't make a ton of sense. And thank God, because 35 fantasy points, man, just he didn't really have to do anything. He attempted 9 field goals and kind of just took a back seat to Chris Middleton, who poured in 27 points and 52 fantasy points. I guess we'll start with Portland first, though, at home. What are you doing with the Portland Trailblazers against a very good Milwaukee defense, but also a Bucks team that plays at one of I think the fastest pace. Yeah, the fastest pace in the league.
Yeah, the pace is appealing, and
I'm sorry, Adam. By the way, Whiteside is a game time decision after playing last time out.
Yeah, announced. It was like right before lock yesterday. We got the news that he was questionable for today.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm guessing he plays, but I really have no idea. If he doesn't play, it's minutes for Tolliver. It's minutes at the 5, probably for Melo.
Because Okc La BCA is out as well for
right. He's
weeks.
Out, and unless they call him up today, for their last game, they didn't call Moses Brown up from the G League. Maybe they will today, but we'll see. So yeah, I mean, assuming Whiteside plays, he's a pretty strong option. He's a 1.4 fantasy point per minute guy. He plays 34, 35 minutes in competitive games. The problem is that he's still in a position with Andre Drummond, so the opportunity cost is pretty high. Lillard and McCollum salaries both look pretty decent. Lillard at 8,700 on DraftKings, McCollum at 6,500. Both guys play 37, 38 minutes in competitive games. But the one guy that I'm actually really interested in is Melo, only 5,600 on DraftKings. And I think that, so for one, he would get a bump if Whiteside is out in his rebounding. But also, I think he's appealing just because I think there's a good chance that Milwaukee looks to take the ball out of Lillard and McCollum's hands in the pick and roll, and you could get some open looks for Melo on the 3 and to make him beat them with threes. So I think he could get a little bit more opportunity than usual to score. And then there's, again, the potential for more rebounds if Whiteside sits.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the Whiteside news would be significant based on the fact that Scal would have been the obvious play here. Zach Collins also out. It kind of sucks that the guys that would come in and get these minutes would be Anthony Tolliver, and
yeah, exactly. For their last game, when I was assuming Whiteside wasn't going to play, I gave Tolliver 32 minutes. He was 3,100. It got him to like 17 or 18 points, which now he's 3K. So point per dollar wise, it's fine, but good luck getting an actual tournament winning game out of Anthony Tolliver.
Yeah. What about non-Whiteside, non-center players? Carmelo Anthony's price has come down $1,000 on DraftKings since the last game, which came against Minnesota. When you talk about just like a very low floor player that can give you some big games, Melo is exactly that, dude. He was downright dreadful against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now you've got him going against the Milwaukee team that does a very good job of preventing, these mid-range jumpers that Carmelo Anthony is more than willing to get to, slow the offense to a crawl and just ISO. What are your thoughts on Melo?
Yeah, I mean, I actually like him here at this salary. I mentioned before, but Lillard, I think there's a good chance that Milwaukee kind of keys in on the Lillard McCollum pick and roll, and that maybe you get some open looks on the wing for Melo.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, I think if he was 6,600 like he was the other day, then I'd have absolutely no interest in that.
Yeah, totally agree.
But seeing that his salary has come down a bit, I have no issues with that. I'm with you. I mean, I don't particularly love the matchup, but I do think it's a spot that we could probably get to a little bit. You mentioned that you think they might key in the pick and roll on guys like McCollum and Lillard. Does that mean you're not big on them, or does this very high total and only a 6-point spread do enough for you to get to these guys whose price tags have come down a bit? I mean, Lillard and McCollum are 8,700 and 6,500 respectively on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Lillard is 8,500 and McCollum is 6,400. And then on our sponsor Yahoo, you've got Lillard weighing in at 44 and McCollum at 26.
I'm still high on them just because of the minutes and the usage that they both have. Terry Stotts staggering them makes both of them better plays as well. And it's the same thing with Melo too. Like my reasoning for liking guys is almost never going to be primarily because of play type data or because of how I think a defense might attack them. Like it comes down to minutes and opportunities more than anything. So Lillard and McCollum both look good to me. It's just that I think that there's a decent chance that a defense as good as Milwaukee is able to slow them down and, maybe make someone else like Melo beat them.
Chat caught me, by the way. I didn't know you talked about Melo.
Yeah, I was letting it go.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, trying to read chat. I got a lot of balls up in the air I'm trying to juggle, Adam. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I got it, man. I already stopped listening to you so I could read about koala chlamydia, so it's all good.
All right, so we're even. Anything else for Portland before we close it out with the Bucks?
I think Bazemore is worth a mention just because people
so
probably – he's bad. I mean, it's – Dan and I were talking about it on the podcast last night. Dan was like, did he forget, how to score? And I was like, I don't even think it's that. It's look who he's playing with, especially now you have, even if he were playing with the second unit, which he's not, he'd still be out there with Melo and McCollum, but he's playing all of his minutes with, Lillard, McCollum, Anthony, and then every offensive rebound is being grabbed by Whiteside and put back in the basket. He's out there to play defense and knock down the occasional open look. So I think what's interesting about him, though, is that as long as his salary is where it is, sub 4K on DraftKings, he's going to be a decent point per dollar option just because of how many minutes he plays. Like even if you give him 30 minutes at, 2/3 of a point per minute, you're still talking about 20 fantasy points at 3,800. So he's going to be a play that optimizers spit out a lot, and that's going to drive his ownership up. And he's the perfect kind of guy to just pivot away from, take shots on other more volatile players like a Kobe White for a little bit more. Even on this team, Anthony Simons can close over Bazemore, and he's a lot lower owned. I think that's a spot you can pivot to. So, right now we have Bazemore at 15% ownership on DraftKings. I'd be shocked if I got anywhere close to that.
Dude, he's absolutely the optimizer play. There's no question. Just like right now, you might have Daniel Gafford as the optimizer play on FanDuel where he's 4,200.
It's why it's so important to factor not only ownership, but find some way to get range of outcomes into your process, not just median projections, because there are guys like Bazemore where the median projection looks really good, but there's not really much beyond the median projection. He's really unlikely in terms of raw points to help you. And because the median projection looks good, the ownership's going to be there, so he helps you even less.
Yep. The only thing I would say that might somewhat benefit him, and really I'm just reaching here, is that the one spot that Milwaukee has struggled in defensively is they do allow a high 3-point percentage to opponents, and they do allow the most 3-point attempts per game to opponents, and most made 3-pointers. But I mean, really, that's just me grasping at something to say, hey, he's cheap and he could be viable. But man,
it's the same logic I just used on Melo.
100%. Yeah. Except Melo's range of outcomes is way different than Bazemore.
Right. Melo is capable of winning you a tournament.
Yes.
The day Kent Bazemore, it's going to be today, but the day Kent Bazemore scores 30 real.
Hold on, did you say it's going to be today? It's
going to be today as soon as I finish the sentence. But the day Kent Bazemore scores 30 or 35 real points while playing with an uninjured, completely healthy Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, and Carmelo Anthony, it's not going to happen.
No. Cue it up, baby.
Yeah. God, that clip's going to be fun in 12 hours.
Oh, no question about it. Yeah. Ken Bazemore is the type of guy that can lose you a tournament, or he can just help you not lose a tournament, but he's never going to win you a tournament.
Right. When like Bazemore is the guy, and it's the case with a lot of value, but Bazemore is the guy where the biggest thing he's bringing to your team is what else you're able to get into your lineup. But when you're talking about players like that are low volatility players, if the field is keying in on one of them, I would rather just take a different one and get the leg up when my lower owned one beats their like when my low owned bad play beats their high owned bad play. Um, I have an advantage.
All right. You ready to close it out with the Bucks?
Yep.
Giannis Antetokounmpo coming off a tough one. Like I said, at the end of the show, you and I would kind of try and come full circle with all of the top priced guys. Let's assume Davis is out. We already talked about LeBron, but you've got James, you got LeBron, you got Drummond. You already talked quite extensively about him, Luka and Giannis. I guess really the big question here is like, where does Giannis fall into all of this for you?
On DraftKings, I think it's tough because he's just so much more expensive than LeBron. I think that at 900 less than Luka, I'd give the edge to Giannis. On FanDuel, you have Luka is about the same price as Giannis. I think that it's really close between them. I'd give a slight edge to Luka, I think, but it is really close. I do like that this game's at Portland and that they're a good enough team. They should be able to hang in there, and maybe you get a couple extra minutes from Giannis. So I think Giannis looks a lot better on FanDuel than he does on DraftKings. On Yahoo, I think he looks better than on DraftKings also.
Yeah, it's pretty wild when Giannis is $200 more expensive than Drummond, no matter how good Drummond's been. Like that to me is outrageous. And
1.8 points per minute for the season for Giannis. It's just a minutes thing.
Exactly. And fortunately, yesterday he only played 28 minutes, so I'm not worried about this back-to-back, even though it's on the road being a big deal. Like if you get 33 minutes from Giannis against Portland, my guess is you'll probably be pretty satisfied at 11,000 or 11-2 on FanDuel.
Yep.
What about the rest of the Bucks? Is there anything that you like not named Giannis Antetokounmpo? Bledsoe, Middleton coming off a strong effort. Brook Lopez, does what you would expect him to do every game, and he's priced kind of in no man's land. What are we closing this out with in the Bucks?
Bledsoe got 30 minutes yesterday in a pretty non-competitive game without playing the final 4 minutes of the game.
Very strange. 31 actually.
Yeah, that's strange. His price is just really affordable. Like he's 6,100.
He played 30 against the Warriors in the game right before that too. So he's now played 30 plus in back-to-back games.
Hill was out of the one 2 games ago, so that's kind of what I chalked that up to. But Hill was back yesterday, so that's interesting. At least it makes him a guy that you can look to in tournaments. One other thing that stands out from yesterday's game is that Middleton and Giannis were having their minutes staggered. That makes a huge difference for Middleton. So it makes him, I think, a pretty decent option too. Like I wouldn't say that they're not priorities. There's guys on the slate that we've talked about that I like more at their respective positions or price points. But I think that all of Giannis, Middleton, and Bledsoe make for pretty high upside options here.
Top options from this game?
Giannis, Melo at 5,600. It's mostly like tournament plays as opposed to like cash optimal plays.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame too that if Whiteside's out, there's really not much there. Is there any way, I know you touched on it a little bit, but we'll close with this. Is there any way you think we could exploit on either side the Whiteside news if he's out to get an edge?
I don't want to call a $3,000 Anthony Tolliver an edge.
Could it be that not playing Tolliver would be the move? You know what I mean?
Well, the thing is though, like assuming we don't have news before lock,
and it's a 10 p.m. game. It's the only 10 p.m. game.
Right. Assuming we don't have news before lock, Tolliver's not going to have ownership
at all. Yeah.
Like you look at yesterday, Dwayne Dedmon was 2% owned on DraftKings, and he had just played 30 something minutes the game before in the exact same situation. So like if we don't get that news, Tolliver's not going to be owned, which means that the biggest edge probably is take your Kent Bazemore, your Anthony Simons, your whatever trash value you had and turn it into Tolliver because he's not any worse and he'll be lower owned.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us. Hey, if you guys enjoy the show, by the way, thanks for hanging out on a Saturday morning. If you enjoy the show, hit us with a thumbs up, like the video. It's the easiest and simplest way to help support us here at Awesemo. Good luck to everyone today, and we will catch you back here. We got a bunch of shows coming up. So Live Before Lock and the Deeper Dive for NFL today. You've got Ben, Alex Baker, and myself, followed by Sal Vitri and Chris Randone on Live Before Lock. And then NBA Live Before Lock coming up at 6 p.m. with Eddie and EMAC. That'll do it for us. Thanks. Actually, someone's filling in for EMAC. I'm not sure. But you'll still have the Live Before Lock coming up. This has been the Strategy Show. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you back here next time. Peace.